In 1965, in the rolling hills of Salzburg, Austria, a single noise nearly derailed one of the most beloved films in cinema history, and for decades, no one was allowed to speak about it. When people think of the sound of music, they think of Julie Andrews, spinning in a meadow, children marching in drapery outfits, Christopher Plummer, scowling yet suave, the epitome of wholesome family movie magic. But behind the scenes, the cast carried a secret so absurd, yet so humiliating that it threatened to ruin not just one perfect scene, but the entire production's reputation. It happened in the gazebo, that fragile glass pavilion where Lissel played by Charmian Carr, and Roll danced through raindrops in teenage longing during the tender 16 going on 17 sequence. A moment that captured innocent romance under the glow of studio lights and the quiet hush of Austrian drizzle. It was the heart of the film's love and hope, but the truth is that gazebo became a prison of laughter no one could escape. They called it the giggle curse. At first, it started innocently enough. During a late-night shoot, a sound technician, exhausted from hours of looping rainfall through tin roofs, left his equipment running a fraction too hot. A microphone hidden near the floorboards picked up everything: the patter of rain, the shuffle of dance shoes, and something else entirely. A sound so human, so unmistakably embarrassing that it sent Charm and Carr stumbling mid-spin and the entire crew doubled over. Someone no one knew who had passed gas loudly on one of the cleanest, purest sets in Hollywood history in the middle of the scene that the studio bet the movie's emotional core on. At first, it was funny. They all laughed. Even Julie Andrews, who'd come by to watch her young co-stars film their sweet duet, had to excuse herself from the set, tears of laughter streaming down her cheeks. But as they reset the shot, the giggles refused to die. Each time the orchestra queued up the opening bars, someone would remember the noise, that perfectly timed blast echoing off glass and marble, and they'd lose it all over again. Christopher Plummer roped in to reassure the teens, found himself smirking behind his script. He hated the movie, called it gooey, but this was a disaster that delighted him in the worst way. The director, Robert Wise, tried every trick in the book, changing camera angles, shooting reaction shots separately, even bringing in extra crew to stand guard outside the gazebo, convinced the culprit was some prankster lurking in the bushes. But every time Charmian and Dantru hit roll stepped inside that gazebo, they couldn't do it. A single glance, boom, they'd break. The sound was in their heads, rewinding, over and over, more infectious than any real blooper could be. The studio was bleeding money. Thousands wasted each day as film reels piled up with unusable footage of teenagers collapsing into giggles, extras snickering behind trees, Plummer muttering about juvenile nonsense. They tried to fix it in post-production, splicing together fragments of takes, but the performances were dead behind the eyes, stifled by the sheer willpower it took not to break down again. Rumors began to spread the sound of music, fart, tape, they called it. Julie Andrews, the saint of stage and screen, did her best to keep the kids focused. She brought cookies, sang warm-ups, even tried hypnotism, insisting they imagine themselves in a bubble of serenity. It worked for half a take until the orchestra hit that same note, and a stray squeak from a shoe on the wet floor sent them right back to square one. Desperate, the studio made a call that would haunt the cast for decades. They issued a hush order. If anyone talked about the noise, the takes, the tape, or the studio's failure to fix it, they'd be blacklisted. The footage was sealed away, spliced, burned, or locked in the vault, with the kind of ironclad NDAs that only the golden age of Hollywood could produce. On the outside, The Sound of Music premiered to global adoration. Charmian Carr became a household name, forever sweet, lethal, dancing through rain, and first love. Plummer, ever the cynic, joked at parties about how that sugary mess nearly did him in, but never said a word about the gazebo's curse. For 30 years, no one breathed a word. Studios protected their fairy tales back then. The idea that this squeaky clean classic had been nearly undone by a single fart was unthinkable. Charmian Carr, loyal and sweet to the end, always dodged questions about why the scene had been so hard to shoot, chalking it up to slippery floors and sprained ankles. But the truth bubbled beneath the surface like that stubborn noise that started it all. Then came the interview, the moment everything cracked open. It was 1995, on the set of a reunion special. Julie Andrews, radiant as ever, was asked about her fondest and strangest memories of filming. She paused, looked off camera at Charmian Carr, and smiled that knowing mischievous smile only a legend can wear when they've carried a secret too long. Well, there was that gazebo, she said, her voice sweet as spun sugar. Carrion and gasped. Plummer, tuning in from home, spat his drink all over the phone. We had a noise problem. Julie giggled, the first time the words had ever crossed her lips in public. The host, clueless, leaned in. In eyes, Julie leaned back in her chair, and with impeccable British understatement said, "A perfectly human, terribly timed little slip of the body. It broke us all." For days, the room erupted. Charmian finally confessed it all. The hours lost, the takes ruined, the studio execs pulling their hair out. The threat that they'd never work again if they breathed a word. It was, she said, the best, worst thing that ever happened to her. The story went viral before viral was even a thing. Die-hard Sound of Music fans dug through old film reels desperate for that forbidden tape. None ever surfaced, not publicly at least. Some say there's a private print buried deep in Fox's archives labeled GZ Laugh Reel. A few archivists swear they've heard it passed around on old cassettes at rap parties for studio insiders only. Whether it's real or not doesn't matter anymore. It's part of the movie's secret DNA. Now, a tiny human flaw in a film that's become the gold standard of perfection. It's a reminder that even the purest, most innocent cinematic moments are stitched together with real people, real laughter, and yes, real bodily functions. And maybe that's why The Sound of Music still holds up. Not because it's flawless, but because somewhere under the swirling dresses and thunderous songs lies a tiny crack in the veneer. A fart in the dark that made legends laugh until they cried, and forced an entire studio to swear silence for a generation. So next time you watch Lissel twirling around that gazebo, lost in first love and raindrops, watch closely. Behind that perfect smile is a girl trying not to giggle. A boy biting the inside of his cheek to keep it together. And somewhere off, Julie Andrews, the queen of class, pressing her face into her hands to hide her tears of laughter. The hills are alive with the sound of music. And if you listen close enough, maybe, just maybe, you'll hear the sound they were never allowed to talk about. Subscribe to Hollywood Untold for more emotional stories behind music legends and the feuds that shaped rock history. Tap the bell to never miss a beat.